All right, we are live. Hello,
Yay.
everybody.
Hello.
Like waiting for it to show up on YouTube. So, I think we're almost there.
Yes.
All right. There it is. All right. Hello. Hi. We're here to talk about The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke.
It's in my stack. You can see it, right? I don't have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine. You're good.
We all have a physical copy this time. I feel like that's kind
Not
of
only is that a
rarity.
physical copy, I
Yeah.
kind of want to pull it out of the stack. It's I think it's Illumicrate that did the red sprayed pages.
Ooh,
Oh, fancy.
Too bad
I didn't
like it.
Yeah. Shh. We haven't gotten to that part yet.
spoiler warning.
Everyone is shocked. Leanna didn't like a book.
Gas
rare-
pour.
Such a rarity. Oh man. Okay. So, I mean, as per usual, we didn't all like it. When do we ever?
At Halloween is the only magical, it's the most magical time of year when everything is wonderful and pumpkins and we all like what we read.
I mean, at least it was last year. We'll see. Who knows if we'll recreate that. So.
Not with that attitude, Bethany.
Goodness. All right. Well, let's start. I don't know why are people commenting and they're just not showing. Oh no, people just aren't. People haven't commented. Okay, that's fine.
I see a comment.
I do see have this. Hey, Margaret. I think this is from earlier though. I don't know if she's still in the chat or yeah.
You know what? We're warming them up.
Yeah.
Get the oven
It's
going.
all good.
The Glade Bodice Strippers book club. Warm up is part of it.
As per usual, we are nail painting with Mara. So today's color is Bonbon.
That looks like my watermelon one that I wore to Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
It is. It's kind of like a watermelon pink color. So
That's fun.
Yeah.
Hey, Jessie. How are you? I know it's been fun. This is the second time I've seen her in one of my live shows. I'm like, oh, it's so good to see you.
Hi.
She's been like doing Twitch streaming, like doing gaming stuff. I see it. She's so
Mm.
cool. Love it. All right. So, The Unbroken. How did everybody feel about it? Amanda, do you want to?
I'll start. I think I read it first out of everybody.
Yeah.
I gave it 4 stars in the end. I thought it was pretty meaty. Like, it's not perfect. Like, there are some things I felt could have been explained better, even though there is a bit of info dumpy stuff in here. But like the magic system, I don't think is really well. It's not whole. Like, I don't understand the rules necessarily, and some characters just make consistently bad decisions all the time, which is like, okay, characters are allowed to be messy, but it's just like, you are a sloppy bitch. And but overall, I liked it. I think, like, the heart of the book is finding cultural identity in a post-colonial world, which I thought it was kind of a meaty subject to get into. Mm-hmm. Am I echoing though? I feel like there's an echo. Never mind, just me. Go ahead.
I think I liked it the least out of all of us, which kill surprise. But
take a shot.
I guess like prose. I don't mean prose as in words. I mean plural. But I didn't like the prose.
You didn't like the prose.
So like prose is not in the prose, but
you get it. It's in pro and con. We're there with
you.
Yeah. Thorns and roses. Rose.
I did the Court of Thorns and Roses is also not very good. But, I think like the idea of this kind of book, like what it's the project of it, is something that I would want to read. I just don't think it was executed very well. So like the type of thing that this aspires to be, I think it continues to aspire. It is not stuck that landing. But like, so like I was excited to read it, and like what enjoyment I did derive from it was just based on the fact that like I like the fact of this book. But there's so many things about like the characters, how they're written, or the prose, or like how the plot unfolds, or just how the world building is or is not conveyed, that I just like, I constantly found myself feeling so disappointed, because this is a cool concept. This is the kind of book I would like to read and I would like to like. So in addition to feeling like I don't think it was well executed, I felt extra disappointment because I was like, this is something I want to see well executed. I want to like this because I want to like this kind of book, but like this isn't it for me.
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably more on that end, but I think probably feeling a little more warmly to it than Leanna did. The things I liked were I did like the themes. Like I like the ideas of this book. I thought those were interesting. And I actually did like the world building pretty well. I'm not going to say it was completely consistent, but vibe wise, I was into it. So I'm not somebody who gets super hung up on world building plot holes unless I'm just annoyed with the book. So I was into that. I think I gave this 3.5 stars because I appreciated where this was going. And I think for a debut, this is actually pretty good. But I think I had a lot of problems with the writing itself. Like that was the thing that kept taking me out of the story was the actual writing. Cause I think it was sort of aspiring to kind of a more elaborate prose style. And I don't know that was
except
fully
for when
successful.
It wasn't.
Except for when it wasn't. But it had like kind of flowery moments that I thought weren't very successful for me. And then the characters in particular, I struggled with in this. I just didn't feel like they were very convincing. And I'm somebody who tends to be more of a character-driven kind of reader. So for me, that was a miss. I will tell you, I read this last weekend, and I am struggling to remember much about this book. So I think it was also a little, I kind of felt like it was 300 pages of book in a 450-pound bag. So I think that made it a little forgettable for me. So anyway, Bethany, go for it.
So I liked it quite a lot. Like I can see places where, like it, like I had some criticisms of it, but I ended up landing on around a 4-star as well, and I mostly had a good time with it. I think I enjoyed the first half of the book more than the second half because the second half there were a few too many plot conveniences that didn't totally. I struggled with like believability, I think, a little bit in the second half of it, but I love the ideas also. And I think for me, like if I'm into the ideas of a book, that is very much in its favor. And so for me, like that, I think made a big difference. I think it's doing so many interesting things. We're like centering, we've got queerness, we've got disability, we've got like this post-colonial stuff and like how like and trying to I don't know that it did it perfectly, but I thought it was a really interesting project trying to take a look at both sides of colonization and like the motivations of it. I just thought this was doing a lot of really interesting things and it was cool to see. I liked the world. Like I would have liked a little bit more from the magic system, I think, but overall I liked it. It's clear that it's pretty inspired by like Algeria and France. And I thought that was interesting. And I also think this is an interesting take because I think you could call this what is the word for fantasy with guns?
Flintlock fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, this is basically Flintlock fantasy, except like not centering Europe, which I think is also kind of interesting to see more of that getting published. And I'd like to see more of that. So yeah, I sometimes struggled a little bit with some of the characters. I think the character names are always like, and yeah,
I remember Luca. That one was easy to remember.
Yeah. But Terrain, I had mixed feelings about her. I think I wanted her to be more like, I'm like, make some better choices eventually, like.
It is the first book in a series, so I gave her a little bit of a pass of like potentially in the course of the series you're gonna get there, go somewhere.
Yeah. I think I like she just didn't think through consequences of her actions.
But see, like I don't know. Okay, so like the problem that I have with characters like that, or like the way she's written, is where if there's a difference between a character that's written three-dimensionally and believably, where like this character is believably making poor decisions. But it's not believable that this person, what you've told me about her background, what you've told me about her experience, what you've told me about why people put her in the positions that they do, what you tell me about who she's supposed to be, and then you're showing me the actions that she's taking and the decisions that she's making. And I'm like, those do not gel. Like, she is not, like, she should be making better decisions based on who you told me she is. So either she's not who you told me she is, or she's really dumb. Like, why is she so dumb?
Yeah, she's in love. I don't know.
I mean,
doesn't love make a fool out of us all.
She's a soldier. She's a lieutenant. She's a soldier.
Yeah,
her whole job is taking orders and following orders, not making the orders.
Yeah.
So part of me thinks like, okay, you're not going to make great decisions right off the bat because you've never been in this situation before. So I think her making consistently the best situation possible. She's not Kaz Brecker,
right?
You know.
But she consistently makes the decision to just betray whichever side she was just most recently on. Like, that is always her decision. And I'm like, why?
Which is, I appreciate the kind of chaotic neutral of that, you know?
I mean, it's like whatever she thinks is best going to serve her in the moment, which, like, given her background, like, makes sense. I do think that, like, there's an argument to be made for the fact that we're kind of in her head, in her perspective. And so I think she sees herself as more competent than she actually is. And so, like, I think a lot of, like, I think that maybe a lot of what you're seeing there is, like, the difference between how she views herself.
This is when I also have problems with Luca, who I don't believe should be a ruler of anything, because all she's demonstrated is also poor decision after poor decision, including putting her lover in like this position of like incredible tension and like power. And you're like, neither of you should be in charge of anything. Why am I reading about either of you? And why should I root for either of you to be in charge of anything?
I think that's why the character piece of this was disappointing to me, because, like, I mean, you know me, I love a political machination kind of situation. Like, that's a plot that I get into. And I was like, God, I wish somebody besides Luca was having these machinations because I just didn't feel like she was good at it. So it was like, it wanted to give me those machinations, but I just never believed them or like was really invested in them because I was like, I don't know that I think Luca can get this done.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I was going to say, I guess I feel like that's kind of the point, is that Luca was born into this and therefore feels the need to prove that she's capable of it, when in reality, like, the best number one, she's not, but also that, like, the best thing she could do is just like leave, like leave people alone and let them figure out their own stuff, which like, I mean, I think is a lot of exactly what happens with colonization too, right? Is that like people who don't necessarily deserve to be leaders or are capable of being leaders or not good leaders become leaders just because they were born into power and money and whiteness. And like, so I guess I feel like that's
where I think you've picked a bad point of view character. Right? Because like, I just don't think I think that's an interesting idea, but as a character, I don't, as a reader, and maybe it's just
also like if
I just don't think that's very interesting. It'd be more interesting to me to be like either with somebody who's competent at the political machinations and is terrible, or is like maybe like truly good, or like has like a mission or something, but like doesn't know how to navigate this world. I just think that it doesn't set up. And again, I'm a character-driven reader, so like I'm looking for a character to really invest in, and I just didn't really have anything I could sink my teeth in with Luca because I didn't like her. Like she wasn't doing anything interesting for me. I mean, that's not the right way to say it. I didn't think she was good at what she was trying to do, and then I also wasn't really rooting for her like love story. I wasn't really rooting for like her as a person.
But I don't think you're supposed to. I mean, I get that.
No,
like,
I don't either. I'm just saying in terms of like giving me as a reader something to hold on to with that character. I just could never find something to like hold on to, and she's half of the book. So
well, it's also the fact that the only motivation Luca seems to have is proving she's capable / also like doing everything for her lover. And so then like I don't have anything else about her to learn about. So like the only thing that is there in that POV is to be like, she wants to be in power, and either you're for that or you're against it. And I don't see why I should be for it because she's bad at it. And so like, I mean, Tamara's point, like either if she was like, if we drove home the point that she's really bad at this and she shouldn't be in charge, and that Terrain was a really strong counterpoint to that, and juxtaposing those two POVs, then you could see exactly why she's bad at this and exactly why she needs to get out of there. Instead, the whole time it's like, we kind of ship them, maybe not. Should we not be there? I deserve this because I need to prove myself girl power, but also not because you're the colonizer and you're not good at stuff. Like, I just was like, what?
I think, thank you. I think that, you know, Luca is like, her whole point as a character is just to show the mindset of a colonizer. Like, she's not supposed to be good at things, and you're not supposed to like her, and you're supposed to think like, you are dumb as a post because it's fucking dumb. So I think she's doing exactly what she's supposed to do as a character. And, you know, like her naivety about things, she's like, oh, well, I'll just give them this and then they'll be nice to us. And she's like, and I was like, no, you took their homes. Like, they're not gonna be nice because you gave them like some food once. Like, her naivety of it and how she thinks like other people are going to respond and how she feels entitled to this. So I feel like her character is doing exactly what it should do, and you're not supposed to like it. And then Terrain is just, I think her whole character is also kind of metaphorical too, where she's just like trying to figure out where she fits because she had her whole cultural identity stripped from her. And so, and she's never seen as part of the colonizing society. She's not seen as part of her original society. The only society she has are these other conscripts. So everything she's doing, regardless of who she's betraying, is because the only people that she is a cultural group of, she has their best interests at heart. So, you know, and she's trying to do her best, but like everything she does just doesn't go well. So I think both of them are a bit more metaphorical characters than literal characters. But
I think you're right, Amanda, and I think you actually just helped me coin a new term. I've heard the term plot Muppet before, which is where like characters come in because the plot needs it, and I'm like, these are more so for me, Luca, than Terrain. Like, I felt like I had more as a actual character to hold on to with Terrain. Luca to me felt like a theme Muppet. Like, I don't disagree with anything you said. I just think that works. Like, a great book has the themes and has characters like acting out those themes, and you still care, like the character still feels lived in, rounded, more interesting beyond just their metaphorical service to the story. So I think you guys are not wrong. I think I'm identifying like, oh, that just doesn't really work for me as a reader. Like, if all they're doing is like, serving
for me,
a theme
personally
purpose.
Like that type of situation where characters are more like archetypes and representative of a type of thing rather than human beings, for me, then the story has to be written in a very arm's length kind of way where like I can tell that this is meant to be kind of like, these are not people that I'm latching onto, they are serving a purpose in this story, and it's more fable like that way. So like the Winter Night trilogy sometimes feels like that, where it's more arm's length, and I don't mind because the whole thing is kind of meant to feel arm's length. But this was a very close third person where like I feel like I'm meant to like really get into the heads of these characters, and there was just like nothing in their heads. So I just felt constantly like I was like treading in really shallow water and waiting for the deeps, and I just never found them.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I can see, like, I guess I don't feel that extreme about the characters, first of all. Like, I do feel like there's more to them, but I also do think that, like, I can understand how the experience of reading, if that's what you want out of a book as a character you can really root for or be that invested in, like, this might not give you what you're looking for, because I don't think that's the project of the book. And Amanda, I think you're exactly right, is I think that, like, what the author is interested in doing here is exploring these ideas through the specific characters that were given. So like, you know, would it be more fun maybe to read a story about like, you know, some of the different things, Mara, you were talking about? Maybe, but like then it wouldn't be doing what the whole point of the book is doing, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear that, but I also, I guess, like, I just tend to maybe agree a little bit more with what sorry, I always get confused on which side is which. What Lana is saying in terms of if what you're doing is purely a book of ideas, I think signaling to the reader in terms of like how you handle POV closeness, in terms of some of the other signaling, I didn't get those signals. So I didn't have that sort of like, okay, this is an allegory or this is a metaphor. Like, I'm not like these characters, I shouldn't focus too much on like their actual like wants, cares, concerns, because really they're meant to be like, I'm meant to be looking at the chessboard and these are just sort of pieces on the chessboard. Yeah. I'm down with that, but I didn't feel like I got the signals from the author that that's what she was trying to do. So that's why I feel kind of conflict, and that's why I ended up on a 3.5, because I'm like, I do like these ideas, like the ideas are cool, and if she was a little, maybe if I'd gotten the signal as a reader to kind of pull back and have like a bigger picture view of the story, I would have been more into it. But I felt like I was getting the signal of like, no, I'm in this character, and like, this isn't just about how they represent a theme. This is like their story and whatever. So I don't know. Maybe none of that makes sense, but I think I just got confused.
It's interesting. I feel like some of this might just come down to like what kind of a reader you are, of like how you get on with the story, honestly. Because I think for me, like I can be an ideas driven reader. I can be I can get into something that's fully character driven, but I think ideas are a big thing for me anyway. And so especially in a book like this, that's a lot of how I'm reading it. It's funny, actually, the more I'm talking about it, the more I like the book.
The more I hear you talk about it, you're describing a book that sounds great to me, and I'm just thinking about the book that I did read, and I'm like, yeah, I didn't get that out of it though. Like that sounds amazing, but like I read it, it wasn't like that.
That's funny. We have a lot of stuff in the comments, which is interesting. Yeah, I liked the history stuff too.
Mm-hmm. I did too. That's why I like the world building. Like I liked this setup a lot.
Yeah, I did too.
Wait, I was gonna say to that point about the magic, like I guess in future books, but the way the magic was in this book, it was like barely there, and then it just like happened and unexplained, and it was almost like not quite Deus Ex Machina, but like kind of that, where it just kind of like shows up with no explanation and you don't know how it works. And I get the characters don't, if they're not the ones doing it, they don't necessarily know how it works. But like as the reader, I'm like, what is this thing over here? What is this?
Yeah. Like all of a sudden terrain has magic at the end. And although, can I just talk about that for like a minute? Because that was my part of the whole book.
Yeah.
So there's this like creepy, rapey sergeant or like a colonel, I don't know, whatever the military thing is above lieutenant. Captain. There you go, captain. And and he's just a creep. And he like, so there's like, whatever. You get what I'm talking about for the character. His name is Riordan. And the whole book, he's just an antagonist to terrain. And eventually, you know, the book gets really dark at points, and it's a kind of a big ending, you know. Sorry, spoilers, but if you're here in the chat, you know we're going to do spoilers. But like, you know, terrain is fully like gets shot by a firing squad for execution purposes, not dead yet. And then like Rogan's like, I get to shoot you in the head. Like he's having the best time. And she like, all of a sudden now she gets magic, and then Rogan's head just explodes. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I was so happy for a head exploding in my life. She went full scanners on him, and I was here for it.
I didn't. So I can see the criticisms of Magic Ex Machina, but I don't care about that really in a book normally. Like I'm just cool with magic shows up at all. Like I'm just excited. So I was down with that, but it would have been a very ballsy move if Terrain had died in that firing squad, which I thought had happened at first, and I was like, I like that as like just a plot moment. But it did. I agree. I was cool with the reversal being like, and now I'm gonna blow your fucking head off. But I was a little sad. I was like, oh, I would have loved it if she just like went there and was like, no, Luca, behold the consequences of your choices.
I mean, that would have been interesting. So this, I think, is interesting that this is about terrain, that C.L. Clarke calls her himbo.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I think
himbo behavior.
Yeah, which again, to kind of what we were saying earlier, that like she sees herself as more competent than she actually is. It's kind of interesting. And yeah, here we go. Kind of a jock, more brown than brains.
Good.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting.
Which I think did set up some interesting conflict.
It's just for me, like I love reading about like morally gray and reprehensible characters, and even from their POVs. And I have absolutely no, like, it's not like I read this and I was like, well, they're not likable. Like that's not who I am as a reader. I want that depth. Then I want to delve into these psyches of these people, how they justify their behavior to themselves. What is it that drives them? What is it that moves them? Like, even if they're dumb, you can write a dumb character in a fascinating way for the reader, where like you're painting the portrait of this character and you're like, yeah, like I've known people like that, and like the way they're behaving, like it's frustrating to see, but like I see the kind of person you're talking about here, and like, oh yeah, that's definitely what they're like. And I just like, they felt so like surface level plot devices all the time, or they were just making poor decisions apropos of nothing. And I was like, I'm not getting a portrait of a fascinatingly bad character, or a fascinatingly incompetent character, or a fascinatingly complex character. Like, I'm totally here to read about a colonizer and why they think they're in the right. And like, but you, the reader, are like, oh, but you're definitely not in the right. And like, oh, that's like, let's delve. But I just was like, the signals I was getting as the reader, I was like, you want me to root for this? You don't? I'm not sure. I don't really care enough to really pay attention to this because they're not even interesting.
Well, and Miss WOC reader says, C.L. Clark said it's supposed to confuse you. Can you really root for this colonizer? So I guess she, like, congratulations done. Like, yeah. Like, I couldn't
like,
tell
to
what
me,
the
that's
author's
like
at.
with like Sandan Glocko, you're like, can I root for a torturer? But I feel like that's like a layered, complex portrayal of a character that's doing reprehensible things, and you're seeing what in their head, and you're like, do I root for that? I don't know. But is this, I didn't feel like I was like fascinatingly being meant to question it. I just was questioning it as a reader because I didn't know what the author wanted from me.
I think the thing with Luca is that like we're supposed to see like her as her colonizer metaphor self. She has like somewhat good intentions, but her intentions are bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, she thinks she's trying her best to do the right thing, even though, you know, her altruism only goes so far, because really she's trying to serve herself. But she's also like, but look, I can make your lives better. And all the people are like, our lives were good before. Like, we don't need that.
Yeah.
You know? So I think it's also just like seeing someone think they're doing the right thing, but they're not. Same thing with Terrain. Like, she's been conditioned her whole life that the colonizers saved her somehow. They gave her this life. They educated her. They fed her. They did all these things. So when she goes to the general, I can't remember her name right now, the general woman, and she's like, and she kind of rats on Luca, is because, you know, she's been conditioned to do that. Like, that's kind of her mother figure in this odd way. You know, so I think both characters are just showing like, I have good intentions, but they're also pretty.
But like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing, is like, I know, Leanna, you said you just don't think it didn't feel like they were interesting. I just didn't feel that way. Like, I thought they were interesting, and I liked, like, I got frustrated with them as characters sometimes, and like, I can see an argument for like, are they, you know, is it like the most in-depth characterization that could have been done? No, but like that, I'm not bothered by that, I guess. I wasn't necessarily going in expecting that. And especially for like a debut author, I think it's rare to get the level of characterization you're talking about. Like, I think that takes, for most authors, like that takes a long time to get to the point where they can even do that in the first place. So I guess I wasn't going in looking for that.
And that was part of my like
characters.
Sorry, Amanda, go ahead.
Character, where you have the character on the page, but most of the character happens in your own mind, like, which I feel like is a lot with this book, because there's all the stuff on the page, but it's not fantastic necessarily, but like, it makes me think about all these things, like, why would this character do that? So I'm not being told it, I'm being made to think it. So maybe I'm just writing the story myself, and that's why I like it. I don't know. But it's kind of an off-the-page character. It's like, that's what I referred to him as.
Yeah. And I think I gave this book some grace because it was a debut. I think that this is a very promising debut, because I think there is a lot of interesting stuff happening here. Yeah. I don't feel like it fully came together as successfully as I'd hoped it would. But yeah, I mean, I think particularly in the characterization is where I kind of felt the noobness.
Yeah, which I think is fair. I guess I just didn't think it was like horrible. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think this is like the best characterization, and it does read like a debut, but I've also read way worse, and I still thought they were interesting characters, and I liked them.
Yeah.
I've read worse.
I think I need more to get through a book this long. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to be here for 400, and again, the fact that I like don't remember a lot of specifics about this book, and it's like a 500-page book a week later, to me tells me like big picture, interesting, for me, not very memorable, because like the details are not there to make it memorable.
I mean, speaking of it as
that's my experience.
As a debut, usually like, I mean, I'm not very generous as a reader anyway. Like, I'm just not. Like, there's very few things. Like, I don't like give things a pass. I'm just like, I'm a reader. I read this book and this is how I felt. I'm like, whatever. Like, if this is your first attempt, well, then I'll rate it higher when you get better. But like, I also like, if it's a debut and I know that about it, like usually what makes me hopeful about future projects from that author is if like a lot of things weren't perfect, but there's something about it that really shines and that's their forte. If I'm like, okay, this, and this is like, they need to work on that. But this, like, oh, I see so much potential with this part of it. So like, if like the characterization is amazing and like world building, they need to work on that. Or if the world building is incredible and characterization's a little flat. So I'm like, okay, well, that's the part they need to work on. But there was like nothing about this where I was like, okay, some of this is not good, but this really shines. Everything about it was like equally meh to me. Like the prose wasn't super great, the world building wasn't super great, the characterization wasn't super great, the like plotting where it was just like stuff happening all the time and there was no actual kind of like because we haven't talked about the plot really, but it was just like people running around doing things for the entirety of the book and like with almost no explanation and like no motivation and like no overarching like climax or like whatever. Like the whole thing, I was just kind of like, I've not latched onto any piece of this.
Well, but see, I think what the thing that is special about this is the ideas. Like, I do think that the ideas are interesting and unique, and that is something I'd be interested to read. I don't know that I'm interested in this series. Like, I don't think I'm going to keep going with this series. But, like, if there was a new project in the future, I would be interested to read from this author just purely because I thought, like, these are interesting ideas. And, like, if you can get some of this, like, kind of story stuff working a little bit better for me, I could see you growing into an author who would have things I'd be interested in reading. But for me, that was because I tend to agree with you, Leanna. If everything is just blah, it's like, okay, well, nothing to keep you coming back. For me, I thought what was most memorable was, okay, you had some interesting ideas, and I think you built a world which is maybe not complete, but it was a cool world to support those themes. Like, I thought it was a cool setup.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I agree. I thought it was a cool idea. That's why, I felt frustrated because I felt like it was like wasted potential. It was like I saw this concept and I was like, I want to see this executed so well. And then I was just like,
yeah, I guess I just didn't feel like it was wasted potential. I feel like, it was one of these things where I'm like, yeah, could this have been, executed to the point where it's like one of my all-time favorite books and that would be a whole other thing? Sure. But I do think that like it does a decent job with what it's trying to do. I mean, we would probably disagree on this, but like I felt that like it did a pretty good job with exploring the ideas it was trying to explore in interesting ways. I liked it. Well, and I also think I found this to be more memorable as well in terms of like what actually happened and like
you've read it more recently. Give it a week.
I read it like over a week ago and I still remember stuff that happened.
Yeah.
But again, this may come down to just like people like what they like and they don't like what they don't like. Like sometimes it's
yeah, that's true.
We can say like, yes, we all see the same thing here. I like that thing. You don't like that thing.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah.
I think the thing that we all agree on is that the project of this book was a great project, and we just disagree on whether or not they executed it well.
Yeah. I think that is accurate. Yeah, this has made me a little bit curious as well, actually, about the French colonization of Algeria. Yeah, which I just think is cool too, because I don't know how often you see North Africa in that way.
Yeah, I was into that. Like, I mean, you guys know I'm kind of over basic bitch medieval fantasy world, so I'm into except for Hub, but that's because the prose is like
and the characters.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. I am actually curious now to go and like see some interviews with the author. Like, I'd be really interested to actually hear her talk about the book.
Yeah, I don't do any extra credit. I'll just admit right now, I'm never.
I do.
I don't do extra credit.
I do. I love that kind of stuff. I like hearing what authors
I
have.
get why people like it. It's just like,
yeah,
I don't do it.
yeah,
I'm a chaos person.
yeah.
Oh, I will say something I did like with characters. I don't remember their names because names are not a thing, but the wives, and then one of them died at the end. Like that actually made me sad. Like I was invested in them. So
yeah.
I don't know if anybody remembers their names, but I was sad that one of them died.
I remember those characters, but not their names.
I never remember character names, so like that's nothing new for me.
Dasha was one of them.
Yeah.
But can we talk about the magic there for a minute? Because that's where like some magic shit started happening, and so much of the story, like there wasn't any build up to it, but like you kind of see like, oh, this magic just heals people. It's very like hippy dippy, like yeah, peace, let's heal people, and then you're like, oh no, it does other stuff. Like when her wife, because Joshua gets like super killed.
Yeah.
And then wife's just like, well, I'm not letting that bitch die for nothing. And then she's like, oh, I'm gonna melt you from the inside out.
Yeah.
Sorry, bitch. Like I was like,
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. I know. Like all of a sudden this magic got really cool, and then the head explodes, and you're just like, oh, what? This does a lot of stuff. So that's when it got interesting for me.
Yeah, I mean, what I really liked about the magic system, even if we didn't know a ton of details, like I thought it was really interesting that like if you're gonna use it to do harm, there's a cost to you personally, that like you lose something from that. I thought that was really interesting. And like I don't know if we'll get to see more of it in the future, but we had like kind of mentions of things in the past of like a battle scene where there had been shifters who would like kill the enemy and use their energy to power their own magic to shift into. And I was like, whoa, that's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
intense. I thought it was interesting.
Like, and Joshua, the one who got killed, but like Joshua, she was also called the apostate because she was a priestess and she did have all these like religious beliefs, but like she's like, I had to throw down one day, so me and God like aren't on that good of terms anymore. But like, hey, a girl's gotta do what a girl's gotta do. So I found her super interesting, and I wish I had more time with her.
Yeah.
I like them. And then Pruitt, was that somebody's name?
Yeah, Pruitt. Yeah, the Terrain's ex-girlfriend,
who was very petty.
Yeah, I enjoyed the pettiness. So.
Me too.
Did she like stab her like a lot?
Well, and she like betrayed her, and like I mean, there was a lot of pettiness and betrayal going on here. Like everyone was very messy, which I'm okay with. Like
I like messy people.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so like obviously like people had mixed feelings about this. It seems like some people in the comments really liked it. Other people were less fans. Like this is clearly a polarizing book.
I agree with that, though. I agree with that. I think the themes of the ideas and a lot of things were really cool. Is there room for improvement? Yes. Yeah. So
I mean, I would agree.
What did you rate this?
Me?
Yeah.
2.
That was what I was guessing. Okay. I'm getting better at guessing than Leanna.
I know. You can
rating system.
Yeah.
I do like characters named Jackal. Like I just like it. It's so badass. Is that just a me thing?
I just couldn't help picturing Adria's all the time. I was like, the Jackal?
She was missing an arm too, so maybe. So this is a Red Rising thing. I don't think you guys read all the books.
I don't know. It was kind of like high school with bombs. I don't know quite, but that's so funny.
There was a lot of petty relationship problems.
There was, yeah. Well, and like, I mean, the Jackal was a mess, but I guess like she had a lot in common with her daughter, so like, it was complicated.
They're both very chaotic humans.
Yeah, they were both very chaotic people. Agreed.
It's more nature over nurture at that point. It's just like there's a reason you both are kind of a mess,
Yeah. Interesting.
Any final thoughts, anybody? I guess let's like.
I know. I'm trying to think like what else. I don't know. I'm curious to see what direction this takes next. And I also
know if this is going to be like specifically a trilogy or just an ongoing series or like.
I think it's a duology. Yeah, I think it's a duology.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think there's only going to be one other book.
I don't really want them to be together though, because the end of it is kind of just like.
I'm
No.
hoping not, right?
I mean, can we talk about like how Terrain treats Luca's disability? And I was just like, no.
In what way?
What way? Yeah.
Like, there's that scene. Okay, just like Mara, I'm having trouble remembering details, but there's this scene that I remember like being like, that's a no from me. Where like the way she talks to Luca about her disability and like dismisses it and like basically acts like she doesn't know hardship at all, and like that whole thing. I was like, okay, I don't think you should ever be lovers ever. Okay, bye.
How can we be lovers if we can't be friends?
Yeah. I don't remember having that feeling about anything. So
I feel like
I don't.
she's just kind of like treating her like everybody else. She's
Yeah,
like,
basically.
I just didn't. That didn't particularly stand out to me, but in general, I just did not. I'm not shipping them, but I don't think we're supposed to.
No,
be,
I don't
but
think we're
I'm not
supposed to.
shipping them. I'm like,
No.
God, I hope you don't end up together, or if you do, like, I hope you both have done more terrible things and you just deserve each other at that point.
Again, so like I
don't
can't
think we're
tell if
supposed
I'm
to.
supposed to ship them or not, but regardless, there is so much time in this book devoted to like them mooning over each other and making then also horrible decisions based on wanting each other just the whole time. And I was just like, it's not even a situation where like I've read again compelling stories where I'm like, ooh, you are bad for each other, but this is fascinating. And like, oh, this is not going to end well, and you're making horrible decisions based on wanting each other, and you should not be together. But this is interesting. They were just so. I'm like, why do you like each other? Like, there's no chemistry. I don't buy this. Like, it's not even that I'm like, this is bad, but like, I see why. There's like like Alina and the Darkling. I do not ship that, but like, there's obviously like tension there, and it's interesting to read about. I don't want them to end up together. People who do, you guys are crazy. Like, it's again like I wanted these things to be fascinating and complex where I could like really sink into it, and I don't have to like it, and I don't have to approve of it, I don't have to condone it, but I want to be fascinated by the complexity of like humanity, and I just wasn't.
Yeah, like I didn't get the sexual tension between them. Besides, like I think you're kind of hot. Like I think they think each other are attractive.
Yeah,
but like I didn't see like.
I mean. So honestly, I kind of think the relationship is another instance of it being more about the idea she's playing with than about the relationship. Like, I think the point of it was to try to unpack how like the complexities and the power dynamics in a relationship between a colonizer and a person who's been colonized. I think that was the point of the whole thing. So I don't
literalizing getting in bed with the enemy kind of a thing. That's kind of where I assumed it was going.
Yeah.
The other part of it, like, can we just like mention how people are just casually queer and it's like not a big deal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Oh, I did definitely like that. But there's just like queerness all around.
But queerness wasn't one of them. There's like, just people that fuck each other. Like,
yeah. Well, and okay, to this point, I actually agree. And I think part of the point is the idea of like how sometimes the other can be fetishized and how problematic that is. Like that was some of what I took away from it, that like those were some of the things she was trying to grapple with in that relationship more than it trying to actually be about those characters and their chemistry. Which again, like I like
would be fascinating to me, but I didn't like get any of that complexity either. I wasn't reading it going, there's so many layers to what's going on. I was just like, I don't believe this. I don't care about this. I'm really bored.
Yeah, I didn't understand why Luca was obsessed with Terrain. Like there wasn't anything that Terrain was doing in particular that was like meant.
So if the himbo thing is in place, it may just be like.
Besides, just thinking Terrain is hot. Like that's what
basically.
Well, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. But I think that's the point. I think it's like she thinks Terrain is hot and she's like this exotic other, and that's it. And like I which I found interesting while reading. So I guess that's the thing, is like my experience reading this, I found it very interesting and I liked what she was doing.
I felt the author was conveying to me very like clearly that is what I meant to get out of this, that like Luca's like, oh man, like you're just really freaking hot, like I'm really into that, oh boy. Then I'd be like, okay, that's what I'm getting out of this, like there's no depth to this relationship, but like boy is she like got a lady boner for Terrain. But it didn't come off that way either. It was like, I'm making all my rulership decisions based on my lady boner. I'm like, but why?
I mean,
a lot of guys have done the same thing.
I was going to say, boners have been dictating world politics since time immemorial.
Well, and I think it's interesting, right? Because like, honestly, if these were like, if Luca was a man I don't know that we would have those same questions. Like
I would.
Well,
excuse me.
Okay.
But
I mean, honestly though, like I feel like a lot of times, at least many people, like while reading, if you have a man in that position of power, like you just assume all of those things. Like you just assume that he's like into this person and is being driven by his sex drive and making choices based on that, like because we have these cultural, like gendered assumptions. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. Like this is,
it's an off the page book. It sparks
it
a lot
is.
of thought.
It is, which I like that. You know, I didn't try to read it for 3 months. Oh no. Yeah, terrain is hot. Exactly. I think that's pretty much pretty much it.
Terrain's body be banging, you know.
I mean,
literally,
to your point about like it being, oh, it's because it's two women. I mean, like Alex wants to murder me because like there's this epic love story in the Sun Eater books that has been going on for all of them. It like really comes to like a head in the third book, and I'm just like, I don't care. Like I like both of these characters. I don't buy that they're in love with each other, and I don't care about it. He's like, you're a monster. Like, I don't buy their love story, and I don't care about it.
You are such a hard sell on romance.
Yeah, that's true. You are.
Yeah, you're a hard sell on romance, though, Leanna.
Okay,
it takes a lot for you to really ship something.
Well, we're gonna talk about this for a second because I was just thinking about this before we went live because we've been doing this for over a year now, and our first live show was last year in June, and Leanna picked the first book, which was a romance, and she liked it. So I'm like, this started off with good intentions, and then we just haven't hit the nail on the head again.
It's rough.
You know, whenever Tessa Dare puts out that Bride Bet book, we'll all be...
That will be a book club book.
Yeah, we'll all be into it.
Yeah. Watch it be terrible. Because we've put all the pressure on it. And all of us will be like, no, you were supposed to be the chosen
But even
one.
like a mediocre Tessa Dare book, I have a good time in. Do you know what I mean? Like
Obi-Wan Kenobi. You were supposed to bring balance to book club. You were the chosen
I know,
one.
right?
I have the high ground. You cannot defeat me.
I think I've only disliked one thing I've read from Tessa Dare, but I haven't read her early stuff. So
I've not read the early stuff.
It's not good. Don't read it.
Well, which is interesting to hear you say that, Amanda, because I remember reading, like, she was like the hot new author with that early stuff. Like it was well received at the time. So I don't know.
It's interesting. Hasn't aged well, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I was so upset with it. Like 2 books from her, I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like these are Burn with Fire books. Like
Jenny, I liked this too. That's a good point that Bo's saying is like, you could marry my son or my daughter. Like whichever one you want.
Whichever one floats your boat.
Yeah.
It does make, it does open up a lot of political, like it takes a layer of pressure off politics when anybody can marry anyone. Because it's just like, I have 4 daughters. So
I would just like to say that Sun Eater also does this, where they're like, for political reasons, marry my son or marry my daughter, just marry into the family. And I basically want him to be with like pretty much anyone but the person that he's with. That is the epic love story. I'm like, I don't care about this.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
I liked all of that. I'm into that.
Yeah. No, I think it's pretty interesting. Whereas like but everybody's messy and nobody's really good. Which I mean, I think that's the thing is like it's true in a colonial setting, right? Like the colonizers aren't great. The local government are usually corrupt because they're in bed with the colonizers. I found the whole setup to be really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone's supposed to be a good person. Maybe that's the reason why everyone gets so confused by it, because there's not really a set direction. Like this is the path we're trying to follow. It's just like everything's willy-nilly. Look at this, guys.
There are no good answers.
I would just like to say the first law. Exhibit A of how you can write messy characters with messy motivations where you don't root for anybody, and I am so here for it.
Well, actually, also Robin Hobb, right? Like, there's a lot of mess in those characters.
Yeah. So. Although First Law like has its own pacing issues.
Yeah.
False.
Taste is subjective. That's also, I would say, what's it called? The Poppy War trilogy from R.F. Kuang. I feel like there's a lot of mess in those books, but I felt like it's mess I felt like the author was in control of.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what I just didn't feel in this book, that the author, I felt like knew it was a mess, but didn't fully de-mess it for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, I don't know.
The difference between a Jackson Pollock painting and your pet spilling your paint everywhere.
Not that bad. But look, I guess for me, like, and I don't need every book to be this way. Like, I do feel like the Poppy War trilogy or like First Law are things that have gone on to become like iconic and have a lot of longevity. And like, I like this and I like it as a first book for her, but I don't need, like, I don't think it is the same as those, but I don't need it to be,
I have, yes. And actually, now that you say that, Bethany, this is, I think, a difference, Leanna, between the way that, for instance, Bethany and I read, and maybe Amanda somewhat this way too, versus the way you read. I read so many filler books, like books that like I don't expect to remember a year from now, like books that I'm literally just reading as opposed to like watching some reruns of Law and Order. Do you know what I mean? So like I'm okay with this not being great because like it was a fantasy filler book for me.
I don't treat television that way either.
Yeah. Well, but
I only watch things that I love.
Well, you tend to read like bigger, more time commitment books that you're not going to just sit down and read like a 200-page mystery just to read. Right. Like, so I think that also may be some difference of expectation for me. Like I sit down every night to read something.
Yeah. So like,
and
this book is taking hours of my life that I will never get back. You need to earn those hours.
Which I don't
disagree.
Like, I respect that. I'm just saying that like, I don't have the same kind of like, I don't have that kind of expectation for every book.
I don't either. Yeah. I mean, like, I guess that's the thing is for me, like when a book rises to that level, it's a pleasant surprise. I mean, like, that's like how I feel. Like, it's great when it happens, but I don't go into most books expecting it or needing it to be that. Like, I'm okay with.
That's why every book for me starts at a 3-star. And if it gets a 3-star, then that means it was good. Like, it was fine. So, but anyway, just like observationally, I think that there's just a little difference between like, kind of like what you're wanting out of the reading experience versus what I want out of the reading experience. And both are completely valid. It's just an interesting difference.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, fair. I mean, it had.
I agree with that. I felt like the final book, finally, those pacing issues mostly got addressed, but that's fair.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know if everybody, I love The Burning God. I think quality-wise, it was the best of the 3. But
I think my favorite was the first one. But I think
in terms of like what I liked the best, probably the first one. But like in terms of like as a book, I felt like the third one was the best one.
I can see that.
Like, I mean, writing craft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also know people totally disagree with that. So
yeah. I don't know. I definitely enjoyed the first one the most.
Well, that's because like by the time you get to the third one, like you've seen some shit.
Oh my God. It's so bleak. It's very well executed, but it's so bleak.
This is why it's taken me so long to read books 2 and 3, because every time I think about it, I'm like, do I want depression today? No.
I was vlogging when I read The Burning God, and I literally was just sitting there like, so I'm halfway through. Like, it was bad.
Oh man, it's so funny.
Yeah. Same.
It's like the average for me. It's like, it's an average book. This is fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, like good. Like I feel like a 3-star is like either it was like good, but I didn't have strong feelings about it, or like there were things I really liked and things I didn't like. It's like it's either a mixed bag or it's like good.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, a 3-star is like, there were things that I enjoyed about this. It wasn't completely a waste of my time. Like, I enjoyed myself, at least to some degree or at some point. And 2 stars is like, I probably didn't enjoy this at all, but there's something about it that deserves credit. Like, it did something. Like, I may not have had any fun at all with this, but like, it did a thing that I was like, well, you did this thing, which is kind of goodly. So here's 2. 1 is like, burn it with fire.
I so rarely give a 1 star because I just so often DNF those.
Same.
Like a 1.5 is usually the lowest I end up actually going, because if I got to the end of it, either it was for book club, or there was like a glimmer of something I liked about it to finish it, or I was just hate reading it, possibly. But
yeah, the only book that I did technically DNF Shadow and Claw, but like the last 50 pages I kind of just skimmed because I'm like, honestly, reading it's not going to make me understand this anymore.
I think you were okay.
And me and Leanna are buddy reading the next ones next month. Or no, I mean in October.
I was like, are we? What?
No, in October. I'm all, my head is already in September. Like I put up my TBR video, so it's September already. Like
obviously.
No, in October. In October. We're planning on reading it, I think. Yeah, it's interesting. I think most of my 1 stars this year have been things I had to read for the Vivian.
Yeah.
I mean, I usually DNF stuff that I'm like, if I really feel like it's a waste of my time, I'm like, then I'm not going to give it any more of my time and I will DNF you. Like that's
exactly
usually
the only time I'll like finish a book that is a 1 star. It's just like, how dumb is this going to get? Like,
yeah, if it's like hate reading at that point for me, I'm like, okay, like what the fuck is
I need to understand like how you came to this point in your life. Like, are you okay? Do you have bangs now? Like, are you okay emotionally?
Or sometimes like I've hated books more as I've thought about them. So like I'll end it and I'll give it like a 1.5 or a 2, and then the more I think about it, the more I hate it, and then it ends up getting a 1.
I've done that.
I gave it 3, and then I was like,
and then you hated it.
I just didn't like it more and more.
Yeah. It happens.
Anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. I did tell Bethany the other day, I've decided if I don't like books for this book club going forward, I am going to give myself permission to DNF, because like I don't want to hate things.
Leanna.
I don't want to do another Shadow and Claw where I just hated like it wasn't fair to the book because I just was angry I was still reading it. So it wasn't, you know what I mean? So
I will never DNF anything. I will hate it until the last page. You're welcome.
Yeah.
I just have too many books I want to read to like keep reading something I'm not enjoying. I've like done whole videos like talking about DNFing and like why if I was just like a lay person just reading for shits and giggles, I would like DNF like 90% of your books. But like because I'm reviewing books, and I never ever want to have to put a bunch of asterisks to my review and be like, well, maybe by the end they did this, or maybe by the end this is fixed, or maybe by the end, and then like I don't want to have to say that. I want to be like, I read this whole thing, this is never fixed, this is never resolved, this is never cured, this is always bad, in fact it got worse. So like I want to be able to talk about it in its entirety. See, I don't mind the asterisks. I don't have a problem with the asterisks. I'll just be like, hey, I read to this point. I wasn't enjoying these things. Other people seem to be liking it more than I did, but it wasn't for me. So good luck. Like, I don't have a problem doing that. Like, I'm fine.
I don't make conjecture about the future. I'm just like, this did this, and I want to burn it with fire. Bye.
Yeah.
I mean, I did DNF Dracula, and I did a like review saying why I refuse to read any more of it. So I guess I do have my levels.
I like Dracula, but as Eric is saying, I love a rant review from Leanna, so I'm fine. She tortures herself for our benefit.
Fair point.
My cross to bear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whereas I'm like a couple times a year, you might get something like that from me, but it's a rarity.
Yeah, I have to be pretty pissed.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah, I've had this too, where I hated the ending so much it dropped it for me. I've had that happen a couple times. Yeah.
Kitty. Do we want to talk about what we're reading next?
Yes.
You guys, I never remember to bring. Yep, we're reading that
on Leanna's
channel. It's your book.
Yeah, I'm looking at it over there on my bookshelf.
Now, this is a 2015 Locus Award winner for Best Fantasy Novel, a 2014 Nebula Award finalist for Best Novel, 2015 Hugo Award finalist for Best Novel, and 2015 World Fantasy Award finalist for Best Novel. So,
like, don't like it, we're wrong.
By the way, there's 24 pages of encyclopedia in the front of the book.
I think it's
that's just exciting. I
Yeah.
love an encyclopedia. I love a map. I love any kind of extra materials.
There's a lot going to happen in this one.
Yeah.
So
these are characters. These are just
dramatis personae.
It's all characters and places and things.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Wow.
So I've read it, and I'm probably gonna like skim read it again before the discussion, but I'm excited to talk about it. I think it's really interesting.
Did you like it, Bethany?
I did like it. I had a few issues with it that are more like philosophical, but okay, you know what it is? It's like if Jane Austen wrote a political fantasy.
Sold. I'm pumped.
You're welcome.
Also, there's Belnizina the 11th. We have got 11 different Belnizivas in this encyclopedia.
Yeah, I was kind of glad because I did the audiobook initially because like the naming conventions are a lot. Yeah, there's like Veroneshabel. Yeah, I did have trouble with that. Like I stopped trying to keep track of all of who was who because I just couldn't. It was the names were too much for my brain.
Yeah, this I'm gonna have to look at it
for a second. Even on the throne, you're only as good as your wits or your
heart.
That's a terrible tagline. Is anyone else like offended by how bad that is?
I mean, if it means we're gonna get some boning in this, then I'm down.
Well, no, you're not. But it does mean you get a character who's like has a good heart and also has to use his wits. Anyway, it'll be a fun. I think it'll be
the dash or your heart, and it's like you might as well put an exclamation point in it. Like, yeah, there's kitties.
Oh my god, I did not like Dark Dawn.
It's funny. Alan just asked me the other day. He was like, "So why did you hate Dark Dawn?" And I was just like very vague. And I was like, "Well, I mean, like he was like basically laughing at the reader at that point, and like it made me unhaul all of his books because I was like, I can't. Like your ego is like dripping off of every page. I can't read anything more from you." And he was like, "Yeah, but specifically." And I was like, "What? You want me to like explain the plot of Dark Dawn?" So I did. And he was like, "Leanna, that sounds so stupid." And I was like, "Yes,
it is."
You're like, I have a whole video about it.
Yeah.
So. I enjoyed watching the hate reviews of that.
Yeah,
it
was. I did not like it either. I was like,
it's a moody book about feelings. It's very different than the rest of the series.
Yeah, I hated.
It's a moody book about Jay Kristoff's feelings.
Yeah,
it was the right time when I read it. Like
I guess so.
It hit different for me. I liked it.
I hated the ending so much. It was such a cop out.
And it retroactively made me hate God's Grave, which initially I loved and gave 5 stars to.
I did not. My favorite book was always the first one, and I was mad because God's Grave already, I felt like, was making me do things that did not fit with the character that was set up in Nevernight, and that just got even worse in Dark Dawn. And
I DNF'd Nevernight because I couldn't deal with the actual prose. I like the footnotes and stuff, but the writing itself I did not enjoy.
The prose I'm okay
I've not
with.
liked either of the Jay Kristoff books I've read, so I think he's just not for me.
What's the other one that you read?
Aurora Rising.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not good.
I thought it was fun.
It was fun, but it just wasn't. It didn't entice me to read more. Let's put it that way.
That's fair.
So this like I agreed with everything Leanna ranted about for Aurora Rising. It just didn't bother me as much.
Yeah,
exactly. It just was like, but it was fun.
Like, that's the story of our friendship. All 3 of you at any given point, you're like, you're not wrong, but we don't care.
Well, that's a great example of like, I read books just for fun, like for filler. So like, it didn't make me mad that I didn't.
Yeah. I tried the second book. I was like, maybe the second book it'll turn it around. And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't.
I decided to stop with the first one because I enjoyed the first one, but like I read reviews of book 2 and I was like, I don't think I care enough to read book 2. So
I gave the first one 2.5 stars. So I was like, I'm not going to keep going.
I was hoping for the best on that one, and it didn't.
There were so many comments on my Aurora Rising review from like very young fans who were like, they worked very hard on this book, and you shouldn't call somebody's hard work garbage. And I'm just like, oh, like my thumbnail says this book is bad. Like it's not like a bait and switch. Like when you clicked on this, that was gonna be trashing it. So, like
also they're grown ass adults. Like
they'll deal.
I'm not finding a 14-year-old and calling them garbage. It's like, they're grown-ass adults.
And I'm like, you know what? Like, I shouldn't like have to spend my hard-earned money and waste my like minutes and hours of my life that I'll never get back on something terrible. So they shouldn't waste my time. They're being equally rude.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Oh yeah, Half Sick of Shadows. Leanna was not into that one, though Bethany liked it.
And I was like,
I liked it, but I like
immediately.
But I think because we had talked so much about it, I like in my wrap up when I talked about it, I was like, hey, just FYI, if you're going to be bothered by this not trying at all to be historically
If your
accurate,
name is Leanna and you have a library, you will not like this.
Amanda, did you end up actually reading it?
No, I saw it and I was like, oh, that's bad. This is a bad book.
Which book?
I liked it. I gave it 4 stars.
It seems like there's mixed opinions.
It's just like I saw it and I read the synopsis and I was like, no.
Not for me. Yeah.
Not for me. I'm like this. I saw it and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna hate this.
Yeah.
So I just made an executive decision to steer clear.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you liked it. I'm genuinely happy for you.
Yeah. Leanna's not for the faint-hearted.
She likes what she likes. She does not like what she doesn't like.
And it's fine. We all can still be friends. Isn't that great?
So this is September.
Personal
then in October, we're on Amanda's channel.
Final Girl.
For the last Final Girl.
Yeah. So I actually put in the video description, I put all the books that we've announced.
Oh, cool. Okay,
and the month that we're reading them in.
Yeah.
So,
and November is me, and we're reading The Sword of Summer.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay.
If Leanna hates this, we're gonna have problems.
Shun.
But this is, I picked this. This is what she wanted me to pick from Riordan, so I really hope she likes it.
I hope I like it too.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
You've got to pick a Halloween party theme too.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Are we not dressing as Final Girls?
That was the idea, but I'm like, I don't know how. Like,
I don't know if. I
White
just don't
beaters,
know of any.
thick blood.
Yeah,
it's probably accurate.
There's a lot of Final Girls.
Dress like an 80s babysitter.
Or if you wear a ratty prom dress and then blood, like you run away from the party.
We're just gonna be bloody. This is gonna be a blood fest.
I don't know. Leanna, do you like Percy Jackson?
I've never read Percy Jackson.
Well, there you
She
go.
hasn't read it.
So we don't know.
This is gonna be her first foray into Uncle Rick's oeuvre.
I don't know if she will like it, but we'll see.
I just hope for the best. I throw things and say, please.
I don't know. Well, because I feel like when it's middle grade, possibly her heart will be filled with openness and whimsy.
I DNF'd, what is that? House on the Cerulean Sea. So.
Well, that's not middle grade.
That's not middle grade. That's adult.
No, but I know, but it's very twee, and like that's why people like it. I'm like,
this isn't twee in the same way though. It's like written for young. It's like whimsical because it's written for young readers. You know what I mean?
Or like early Harry Potter. We're just kind of like, it's whimsy and like, you know.
I don't know if she'll like it. We'll see. I read the first 2 and I liked them. I don't think I like them as much as Mara does, but
I liked the first 2, and then the third one is where like shit gets real, and I was like, oh, I actually really like this.
Mm-hmm.
So
I really want to like Percy Jackson, so I hope I do.
Yeah, but this is Sword of Summer, so it's Magnus Chase, and it's Vikings.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if there's any chance of me liking this, if the Vikings don't do it, like,
yeah. It is. I think you're gonna have a problem with the pacing.
We're just like, please like book. I feel like we're being mean to you. We're ganging up, but I'm like, we just really want you to like things.
I really want to. That's why I get so mad when I don't like books, because I want to like books.
There's a chapter called "The Man with the Metal Bra."
Interesting. You know what I think is difficult is I feel like, Leanna, there's not a lot of stuff that's like in the middle for you. Like you tend to like really love stuff or really not like stuff. Like it seems rare that you're like, yeah, this was good.
Honestly, like I'm more likely to DNF something that's like at the 2 to 3 mark because I'm like neither love nor hate it and I have 0 to say about it. I'm like, I feel precisely nothing about this. Like,
oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm looking at the chapter titles, remember anything that happens. This is so fun. It's just fun. It's a fun book. And there's Vikings.
I think there's a lot of
And
booktubers that say it
Scots.
how it is. I
A
just
lot of
say it meaner.
Well, I think that's the thing is it's like I don't think any of us are dishonest in what we think. We just have different like things that we like and dislike.
I'm just more bitter.
Put my personal preference out a little bit and be like, this is why I don't like it, but like, you know, I don't want to yuck someone's yum. Also, it's just like a lot of, that's just my brain set right now with my sommelier training and certification, because like I drink a lot of wine that I don't like. And I have to be like, why is this good? And like take out my personal preference and just like examine like the winemaking process through my mouth. So
I feel like for me, like it's not reasonable for me to set myself up as some kind of like unbiased arbiter of general opinion. All I can really tell you is like I didn't enjoy this, and if you followed me long enough, you know if that usually aligns with you or not. So I'm like, I hated this. So if you tend to like what I like and you hate what I hate, then you will also probably hate this.
Or if you love what I hate, have I got a book for you?
Really into it, right?
Which I have people who tell me that they're like, I rarely agree with you. So when you like something, I know to avoid it. I'm like, I'm glad I can be helpful.
Yeah.
Or like when I was like, I've often told Bethany that if I like look up a book on Goodreads and she's like one of the reviews on it and she's giving it a 3, I'm like, ooh, that's gonna be a 1 for me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, if Bethany gives it a 3, I'm like, ooh, she didn't like that.
I trust your opinion. Like you told me to like pre-order, what was it called? That one with the pansexual blood mage, In the Ravenous Dark. You told me. I looked up no reviews or anything. I just pre-ordered it and I loved it. So I'm
yay!
Like, opinion on things.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad you. And I feel like Amanda, you're like, especially with stuff like that, like I feel like you're the most likely to have the same opinion on something like YA. I guess I would say as I like to like something I
think I'm more likely to like without questioning it trust somebody disliking something rather than liking something. Like I will not pick something up because I've heard somebody rant about it or because I trust that they disliked it, but I will rarely take someone liking it and be like, oh, I will like this. Like because I'm like, this is just, I too often hate things that people like for me to believe that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
This is true. This is funny.
Yeah. Me.
I wish I was British.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, yeah.
Yay. We'll be back next month on Leanna's channel. Same time, same place. What was the last Saturday?
Last Saturday of the month.
What date is that?
Me and my calendar. The 25th.
The 25th?
Yes.
Yeah. September 25th.
This one's not too long.
No.
It's like 400-ish pages.
Yeah. October, we might do it in the evening for a Halloween party. So we'll find out.
Ookie spooky.
Yeah. Be fun. All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.